Hey everyone, my name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. I've been getting and seeing a lot of comments on, hey look, should I keep buying into these things because they've gone up so much? I feel like I'm chasing? What do I do? Like what advice do I have? Or not necessarily advice, but what would I do in my situation? So I'm going to talk about buying into strength. And I'm going to give you some quotes and maybe this will put you at ease. So right here, we've got buying into strength. So buying into strength, yes, buy into strength. So my questions that I ask you, is the value good and are the market conditions good? And if those two things are good, I would say it's actually a good time to buy, not a bad time. I know it feels like you're chasing something, but you have to keep in mind, you don't have to wait now. The timing is perfect. It's already moving up. And I would say, yeah, go ahead and buy into the strength. So if the answer is yes to both of those, if the value is good and market conditions are good, keep piling in. That's what I'm doing. And when you go to buy your companies, choose different strategies when you buy. Maybe sometimes you buy into the strength. Maybe sometimes you buy on a pullback. Maybe you buy a lagging company. Maybe you buy a company that just seems like it's leading and absolutely crushing it. Change your strategies, because there might be companies that never really pull back. They take off and then they just jet higher for a very long time. So if it's a very good company and that one's going to be one of the highest returning companies during this next bull market, obviously you want to add some money into it. So you may have to develop a strategy that you're not used to doing, because if you're used to trying to bottom feed, so to speak, that's not going to work if you've got a company that's extremely strong. So you might have to buy into strength, a very strong move, because they're not going to pull back. So strategies for buying, perhaps buy into those with the most strength that you see. Pick some up. Buy some that are lagging behind. Buy some that are in pullbacks and are at support levels. Incorporate all of these into your strategy of buying. And billionaire Eric Sprott, one thing he said that is seared into my head is he says, and this is his opinion, buy into strength. Keep piling money into those investments that are working. If something's not working, you don't cost average down. He says, go to the ones that are working the best and keep piling into it. That's where he's made his money. And that is seared into my head. Like, I can't forget that. He said that in one of his Friday weekly updates, and I was like, man, that makes a lot of sense. So even though you're raising your cost basis and it seems foreign to you, the advice from a billionaire is telling you to keep piling into those investments that are working. If it's a very strong company, keep cost averaging in. And keep in mind, you need to know a little bit about these companies. You can't just pile into ones that have shot up 20, 30%. If they have something that is very good, and this is what billionaires do, if they know something is undervalued and the market conditions and the company's working and everything's moving in good speed, let's say it's operating very well, you keep putting money into what is working. So it makes sense. So where would I be looking? Uranium, I think, is a spot I would continue to add money into. The valuations are stupid cheap. They're just starting to pull up and the money's piling in. We should be doing the same thing that they're doing. We should continue to keep adding to our investments because the valuation's good and the market conditions are good. I think this will be one of the biggest opportunities of our lifetime for investment is uranium. Electricity demand is going to absolutely explode around the world over the next 20, 30 years. It's going to be ridiculous how much electricity we're going to need. Baseload power is needed, and nuclear is one of the cleanest ways to produce energy. Also, keep in mind, it has one of the highest energy return on energy invested of anything. That's energy return on energy invested is important because that is your energy to do work in society, and we are going to develop and use the highest forms of energy that we know of to humankind. It has to be developed. So oil. I think oil in the short term will explode higher because of underinvestment and the near-term demand from vaccines going through and everyone rushing back to do vacations, to do business trips, to do all of these things that are basically is just a gigantic pent-up demand. And I think, looking at it from a different perspective, this could be the best investment of any investment that I can think of. If this pent-up demand just explodes higher in the near term, we're talking a year or two from now. Electric vehicles will need a lot more mining right now before they basically come in mass. And mining takes oil as an input. So I see a demand spike happening the same time investments get driven down. Everyone's pulling their investment back, but at the same time we've got this huge pent-up demand from being quarantined and lockdowns and all this other junk. If this comes back in a huge, tidal wave, so to speak, I think, when businesses are delaying people from moving because of COVID, now it's going to be free to roam. So if all this comes back at once, you could see a gigantic demand spike. Will it spike higher than before? I don't know, but I can tell you the supply side has been decimated. So you could see a gigantic spike in price. Natural gas, the bridge fuel to the future green energy transition. This is also a swing fuel when wind and solar are not working to demand capacity, to what the demand is requiring. It's still much cleaner than coal and will replace coal over time. So what I see is natural gas being the transition fuel. And it can deliver electricity and power in a very steady fashion, which is going to be needed to generate electricity for many years. So are they going to build a whole bunch more new natural gas plants? Probably not in America, but they might worldwide. And I think this is going to be our bridge fuel. So, conclusion here is, I think buying into strength is absolutely necessary to be successful. And that's what the billionaires are telling you to do. So if the values are good and the market conditions are good, keep going in. Keep buying it. Uranium, oil, natural gas, they are great spots to be for this bull market in commodities, in my opinion. Physical precious metals is off the grid investment, which will be your savings with growth potential. And royalty companies, physical precious metal royalty companies, I think they are a great way to leverage the precious metals without the downside risks of rising input costs. And even base metals, if you can find royalty companies with base metals, I think those are absolute steals for this next bull market. So, summing it up, huge opportunities here. Uranium, huge opportunity. Physical precious metals, oil, natural gas, royalty companies, I think they're all exceptionally good to hold in your portfolio. That's what I'm doing, at least. That is my opinion and my portfolio setup is physical precious metals, royalty companies, and then miners, which are explorers and producers. I don't have a ton of producing companies because they're going to get squeezed when the prices go up. Now, uranium there's not many royalty companies in uranium, none that I really like. So I'm going to have to go with some explorer/producers in that. But physical precious metals, base metal companies, I like the royalty companies there because we have options and we have none of the downside risks. So if I had money that I was running into, whether it be bonuses or something that's coming up at the end of the year, granted I'm not getting bonuses this year, they cut it all back, I would be looking at these areas to invest in. And oil could be a very big move. We're not seeing investment come into oil. So these guys are really starved for money. And the underinvestment there is really going to pull supply back. And if demand comes in, this huge wave of demand comes back, and we're seeing that in China, we're seeing that in India, and if the US and Europe and all these other areas come back with a large demand, you could see a very large price spike very quick. And remember, inflation's coming. When this all comes back and the money starts flowing, real estate's real high, the money's going to come back in mass. So this is obviously all my opinion. If you guys like this content, give me the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't. And I appreciate you guys listening. This is Finding Value.